Welcome to Uncaged. Today we're speaking with Brian Miller. Brian is the Chief Information Security Officer, or the CISO officer at Healthfirst. And we look at his career, he is information security, security, security. We know that this is a line that he has developed an incredible expertise in. Anyone who's thinking or part of business today is thinking about information security. And it's a hot button topic, certainly a lot of investment going into this space. And so we'll tweeze through what's happening in the broader CISO world. But before we get there, Brian, tell us a little bit about you and your career.
To provide some background, my career really started in seventh grade with my Apple IIe, and that was
Ah,
back in the day when we really didn't realize that hacking and pirating software and all that wasn't very ethical. And as I grew up, I sort of went a different path and went to liberal arts. And in the 90s, I came back into cybersecurity, well, IT and then cybersecurity with EDS, their consulting arm, for a couple of years, and then with Booz Allen Hamilton. And I did a lot of uh, federal, intel community, DoD, and some commercial consulting. With my focus was on DoD and intel community for about 13, 14 years. After that, I came to Healthfirst, and in 2015, they were a growing nonprofit healthcare insurance company, which we have since almost quadrupled in size. But they in their growth, they realized cybersecurity was important. It was a differentiator, it protected their brand and all of that. So for the last 8 years, I've been really taking everything I took to clients and consulting and trying to implement it at Healthfirst, recognizing the constraints of time, money, people, energy. And I think we've come to a really strong place 8 years later where we have a very robust solution.
that's amazing. I love the Apple IIe story. I think that there's been many books written about these types of things, like looking at anomalies or looking at kind of ways that if people had certain items around them, how it influenced them. And I absolutely had the same thing. My father had an early IBM PC, one of the first ones in our area. And lo and behold, guess what? You get exposed to that stuff, you get hooked, you start learning how to
Yep.
code, and here you are,
Yep.
many, many years later. But I mean, Brian, it's been amazing to see kind of what you're able to put in place at Healthfirst over the last 8 years. But I know that you're very active with the broader information security community as well. And it'd just be great to get a sense of what are the types of key issues right now that are percolating to the top of everyone's agenda.
So I think the zero trust thing has been going around for a while, and in some cases it's a lot of marketing buzz. But for me, I look at the NSA definition, which is really around identity, securing every communication. I think it's a continuation and building on really the defense in depth that we had for years. I think we really need to continue to expand our ability to control everything that happens almost seamlessly and transparently for our end users. We've actually implemented a solution for our call center that increased the security of what they were doing, made them harder to hack. We used an identity solution, put up an identity portal. But the end result was we couldn't roll it out fast enough because all of a sudden their average handle time on calls went down. They got more productivity. We were able to serve our members better. So I think along with some of these hot buttons like zero trust, I think where technology is maturing enough that if we can weave in our solutions and solve business problems at the same time, we can really get velocity.
Yeah.
The other piece I would say, relating to a lot of the participation I have in some of these customer advisory boards, is I really believe that CISOs in the industry really need to partner to really drive maximum value both ways. You see some of these best of platform businesses that they're really driving maximizing value to them in the long term, and you're getting mediocre value to the customer. A lot of the companies I take my time and invest my time with, I feel like They are there for the long term to give you best in class at the best cost point they can. But they are producing very good capabilities. So I want to help them continue to provide solutions to the industry while helping them maximize value. I want to pay as little as possible, like everyone, but at
Mhm.
the same time, I'm willing to pay for when value is optimized and there's a win-win and value is flowing effectively both directions. So I think that's an issue we really need to take a hard look at, especially when the tendency is to go for the cheap solution. We really want to go for the optimal solution. Sometimes fewer things that are better quality that are end up giving us much better solutions.
So I'm going to ask that impossible question, Brian. Everyone worries about security now. I mean, constant news stories cover security breaches, and certainly I imagine there's, I wouldn't say panic, but concern for every executive. Are things getting better? I mean, are we getting anywhere?
Well, I saw a chart back in 2010 that started back in the 80s or 90s, and it showed the sophistication of cybersecurity and it showed the sophistication of the hacker community. And you saw this trend upwards in our sophistication on the defense side, but a few inches above it, you had the sophistication of the attack side going up at the same time. I think that's continuing to happen. And one of our challenges is as soon as we batten down all the hatches, the bad actor community scratches their head and says, how else can I make an ROI on this? And
Yeah.
they find different ways in. People are still the weakest link. I think that one thing that we as a security industry need to do is switch from accepting risk to really managing risk. I think a lot of times, what's the right level of risk acceptance? And we sort of get into that paradigm rather than our goal. Like my team, I tell them I want to stop anyone from anywhere, anytime, doing anything. And they let me know it's a big, audacious goal because it is. But we set the bar at that goal, and then we try to move the big rocks of solutions that allow us to move toward that goal and more effectively manage the risk. At the same time, there's risks that an organization has to accept, and you have to have a formal process and all of that. But
Yeah.
ultimately, it's about how do we drive more business value in terms of protecting the business or getting there before the business does with whatever crazy thing they want to do. We can secure it for them. It's really that we need to be much more of a playing to win.
Hmm.
I feel like sometimes in the security industry, we're like a football team and who goes out there and their team motto is, we're going to do our best. Well, if you do your best, you don't get to the Super Bowl. The motto needs to be, we're going to win.
Right, I got it. I like that. Well, so you set the bar high, and certainly there's going to be some level of risk, some level of kind of we don't know. There'll be a bad actor that can enter, et cetera. But if you play for to win, you'll be more prepared going forward. I like that. I like that approach. I think I share that level of thinking.
Yep.
But Brian, I mean, you spent a long time in this area and you worked on clearly sensitive and important security matters and issues. I'm assuming that there's a lot of passion for this space. Tell me a little bit about what drives you and what kind of fires that passion.
Yeah, there's a bunch of things that fire my passion in this space. One thing that it takes me back to the late 90s. I was doing sort of straddling the technical and the leadership fence. My manager came up to me and said, "You can't spend your whole career doing that." Well, I think cybersecurity is really about, as I got into consulting, I began to, you have to manage the business, deliver the business, sell the business, deliver the solutions. You have to be the complete package. So that sort of
Hmm.
fit I want to ride the fence. I did that for 15 years. But I find as a CISO, it really fits that you have to be able to technologically savvy. You have to understand the business and be able to communicate at a business and executive and board level.
Yeah.
And then you also have to be able to sell your ideas. And it's that whole business development. I was pretty good at it. I didn't like it. But now my business development is helping people understand what we are doing and why and what the value is to drive outcomes. The other piece of me is sort of I took a detour and went to did a went to a religious school, got a Christian studies degree, and at one point I went to seminary. And there's a part of me that I really want to give back and have an impact. Throughout my career, I find more money makes life easier, but it doesn't always make it better or happier.
Yeah.
It's who you become and the outflow from your life that enriches it. And I feel like security is a place where we're needed. We're protecting people's livelihood. We're protecting the business. And in the case of Healthfirst, we're focused on some of the lowest income, marginalized folks, and protecting their data and running an efficient business, cybersecurity business. If I can save $20,000, that's another couple babies we can deliver. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of goodness also in where I sit with the company with the mission we have.
Yeah, well, I mean, I love that. I love that combination and really I'd say holistic thinking there. Certainly as we all know, security is not going to go away anytime soon in terms of the challenges that you face, but I mean, here we are in 2024, Brian. What are you seeing on the really out there right now on what's on the docket for the security teams, not only of the business that you're part of, but also on these advisory board in these advisory board roles?
So the first thing that comes to mind from the business is AI. I think boards are asking both around they're sensitized to cybersecurity and they're sensitized to the potentials of AI. So to really roll out, especially generative AI, which touches to work well, really needed to touch all our data. In my industry, concepts of least privilege and then minimum necessary with HIPAA. Well, you need it if you're going to use generative AI, it needs to crawl everything. So how do you control that? Becomes a whole new. I think in some ways it's just like any other technology. And on the other side of the coin, there's a paradigm shift. We need to have to figure out how do we give these algorithms access to everything and then take it away when they don't need it, so we don't
Mm,
have accounts that can be misused. And some of that ties into the advisory board. Like I work with CyberArk, and one of the things I've been talking to them a lot about is the ephemeral access,
mm,
because that if things are provisioned or enabled, accounts are enabled when people go out to do X, Y, and Z, and when they're done, either the account's deleted or disabled. I think those kinds of the AI and what some of our vendors are providing really begin to dovetail. In the case of using it as a business case, I think some of that ephemeral access for service accounts where we're running generative AI and other things has a lot of promise to limit our attack surface.
yeah,
And then I think the other piece really is really security based machine learning and AI, and whether it's generative or some of the other forms. um, AI is really a force multiplier for us. And like for me, I started getting into machine learning back in 2016 and picking up products. And now
yeah.
most of my products at the edge have some kind of AI machine learning. They feed into my SIM, and which goes to my SOAR. And I'm processing over 1 billion events a week now,
Wow.
with only about with everything but 30 incidents going to my SOC team. Everything else is triaged and processed and refined, and we can handle that flow with about 3 to 6 people. So I think that's and helping the vendors community get there, um, and help us be better. And there's always more to do in security. If you remember the little gap between,
Yeah.
we're on the lower line and getting better, and the hackers on the upper line getting better. We need to be able to jump above them. And I think AI and security helps us turn junior people into senior engineers and let AI do and get a force multiplier. I actually had a
Yeah.
year ago, my SOC leader came and said, "We have a problem." I'm like, "What's the problem?" He's like, "We don't have a junior SOC anymore. We have a senior SOC."
Hmm.
So we invested heavily in them, and now they're much more senior engineers and threat hunters and forensic analysts, et cetera.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you captured that perfectly. The force multipliers is a key role. There's always this pressure for us to have talent, but also maybe cut costs, keep it as efficient as possible. And then the other side of this equation really is that ephemeral access, which I think is a really interesting point you're raising. I've been exposed recently to a lot more AI solutions that are essentially kind of not pulling data from everywhere, really trying to kind of almost be like moded type solutions. And it's interesting. I mean, if you have enough information and data, there's a lot of value there. And then somehow you can kind of add in some of the more kind of public information in a safer way. That seems to be interesting. I think there's a lot more work, and actually, I think that there's probably a lot of entrepreneurial opportunity there for sure too. So
Absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely. I think the
yeah.
security community is going to have to run hard and run fast with our analytics teams as we define new solutions and work through them with them. We're partnering very strongly with them, along with privacy and legal, and that really helps us get the most velocity to business solutions when you partner in that way.
Well, Brian, I mean, that you play a role obviously in the broader CISO ecosystem. And so, as we kind of wind this conversation down, where would people find you? Where's the best place to find you, to connect with you, to see if you can help them with some of their CISO discussions and questions and get you to participate in those dialogues?
So I'm on LinkedIn. I really enjoy helping folks sort through problems or issues. I've done a lot with helping initiatives around helping junior folks right out of college. I even had an initiative where I pulled in high school students who turned into some of my superstars,
Wow.
as well as, I like the interaction with peers and other folks in the industry, just to sort of that iron sharpens iron. So feel free to reach out on me on LinkedIn. I am sensitized to getting involved in marketing discussions because all the CISOs, everybody in the world has great products, and I really appreciate it. But unfortunately, we have limited time. So if you
Yeah.
want to talk about your solutions or sounding board or career advice, I'm there, and LinkedIn is a great way to hit me.
Yeah, I hear you. It's an interesting space. I'm excited to hear about some of these new, I'd say, academic opportunities, schools that are opening up, courses that are opening up in the CISO space, because I do think it's a field that offers tremendous promise for young people, actually. I'm hoping they embrace it and really expand. But I know that there's continues to be a massive shortage still in getting really talented people. So talk to Brian. Maybe Brian, you can encourage folks to get going into this space. Well, listen, it's
Absolutely.
been wonderful to talk with you today, Brian. We've been speaking with Brian Miller. He is the Chief Information Security Officer at Healthfirst. We've been speaking to him not only about what Healthfirst has been doing, but also really what is happening in the broader CISO or information security space. And clearly, there's a lot of change afoot. AI is another new hurdle that has to be managed, sorted out, and brought into line from a security perspective. Maybe harnessed is the right word. And Brian and his teams are working hard to make that happen. Thank you so much for being on the Uncaged show today, and we look forward to having you back.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.